Hi, girls. Well, we go on with the Wasteland. You remember the last time we met? We talked about this game of chess and this description of the room with this woman there and all the furniture and the colorful scene. I just want to rewind a bit to that to look at some other details that can help us create this atmosphere of this room.
Of seven-branched candelabra, reflecting light upon the table as the glitter of her jewels rose to meet it from
When we talked about the lights, you remember the candelabra, seven branched. So we could picture in our minds the seven fires, let's call it. But they also reflected more. I mean, the glitter. You remember the golden cupidon. So this question of a very bright scene, and we have jewels also belonging to this woman, you see, and apparently the jewels were very colorful too because the glitter met the flames. So imagine all this into your eyes.
satin cases poured in rich profusion.
We talked about this satin, so this cloth.
In vials of ivory and colored glass, unstoppered, lurked her strange synthetic perfumes, unguent, powdered, or liquid.
We talked about the perfume, that it was not nice to us because of these adjectives. But then we didn't mention this question of the unguent. Unguent is in Spanish ungüento. And ungüento is this kind of a mixture of creams and yes, that you put on your skin for something. We could compare them to mascarillas or to something, a sort of preparation or mixture, but rather creamy, yes? And then you have the powder or the liquid. Maybe this could refer to also to makeup.
Troubled, confused, and drowned the sense in odors, stirred by the air that freshened from the window, these ascended, enfattening the prolonged candle flames, flung their smoke into the laquiaria, stirring the pattern on the coffered ceiling. Huge seawood fed with copper, burned green and orange, framed by the colored stone.
We talked about these colorful materials and this mixture of materials, copper, cobre, then we have stone, we have glass, we have fire, we also see wood. So all our senses are called in this scene because we can see the fire, we can even imagine this, the smell of this perfume, then the satin, this piece of cloth. So most of our senses are appealed to in this part.
In which sad light a carved dolphin swam. Above the antique mantel was displayed, as though a window gave upon the sylvan scene, the change of Philomel by the barbarous king so rudely forced.
I hope that by this time or later, you look for this change of Philomel and this legend of Philomel that was raped by this king. I don't want to spoil your investigation, so I'm not going to say anything else about this story. But I want you to remember that this picture was about the mantle in this room. And well, Eliot speaks about the nightingale. So in a way, he's diverting, that is going away from the description of the room towards the story behind the picture.
Yet there the nightingale filled all the desert with inviolable voice, and still she cried, and still the world pursues.
The nightingale is a bird that we translate into Spanish as ruiseñor. The ruiseñor, the nightingale, is a bird that sings all the time. The voice is inviolable. You can't stop the nightingale from singing. This is closely related to Philomel's story. When you look for it, we'll talk about it next class.
Jug, jug to dirty ears.
Jug is between inverted commas, and I don't know if you're going to find the meaning of this, but it was used in Elizabethan poetry. It was a sort of convention. When you read jug, you knew that they were referring to sexual intercourse. It was a sort of crude joking reference to sexual intercourse. So this is also linked to the rape, you see. So this is a very disgusting scene for us when you learn about Philomel. If you don't know about Philomel, this is nothing for you and we don't understand anything. But once we know about Philomel, once we know the symbol of this painting, everything changes. We'll go back to this.
And other withered stumps of time were told upon the walls. Staring forms leaned out, leaning, hushing the room enclosed.
So apparently there were a lot of other ornaments in the room, leaning, hushing, and upon the walls.
Footsteps shuffled on the stair.
And now we move from the description of the room. Our sense of hearing is called now. Footsteps shuffled on the stair. You know, to shuffle with your feet on the stair. Okay, so this room is upstairs. The description of this room must be upstairs. Someone's coming. That's why the footstep shuffles.
Under the firelight, under the brush, her hair spread out in fairy points.
I can't show you now, next Thursday I will, what fiery points on her hair mean. So this woman with a brush, you know, you're brushing your hair all the time, so you have your fiery points. Your poor hair is sort of standing out.
Glowed into words, then would be savagely still.
We stop here, we have double space, we have inverted commas. Whenever we see double space, we, as a reader, expect to find a change of something, maybe a change of scene, a change of characters, or something different. Even more, when we have inverted commas, we suspect that this is a dialogue, that this is a conversation, that this is a literary quotation. And let's pay attention to how Eliot reads this.
My nerves are bad tonight. Yes, bad. Stay with me. Speak to me. Why do you never speak? Speak. What are you thinking of? What thinking? What? I never know what you are thinking. Think.
This is not a description anymore, you see. It's a conversation, but what kind of conversation is this? I want you to try to interpret, to infer what kind of a conversation is it? Who could be speaking? What's the tone of the conversation? You never speak. Speak. What are you thinking of? What? I never know what you're thinking. Think. They are not talking about flowers, not talking about the food, not talking. So start hypothesizing. What's your hypothesis about this? So I never know what you're thinking. Think.
I think we are in Rat's Alley, where the dead men lost their bones.
What an answer. What are you thinking of? Well, I think we're in this place. What's the Rat's Alley? Apart from the Rat's Alley, that place, the Rat's Alley, is where the dead men lost their bones. So imagine I ask you, Well, girls, what are you thinking of? Oh, well, I'm thinking about that place where the dead men lost their bones. And we said, what? What type of an answer is this also? These are all questions to trigger your thinking and your hypothesis about this. Yes, your analysis. What do you think this answer could mean? Or to your view, what the rat sally could be, what the dead man could be, the bones. Let's go on with the conversation.
What is that noise? The wind under the door. What is that noise now? What is the wind doing? Nothing again, nothing.
You see that Eliot changes the way he reads the questions and the answers, as if there were two people talking. So what is the noise? One person is more nervous, let's say, than the other one, and the other is calmer. Nothing again, nothing. What is the noise? The wind.
Do you know nothing? Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing?
Imagine if you wrote this. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Repetition. So there is a reinforcement of nothing. Do you know nothing? Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing? So you don't remember, you don't see, you don't know. But the other person says, yes, I remember something. And he tells or she tells the other what he remembers.
I remember those are pearls that were his eyes. Are you alive or not? Is there nothing in your head?
So the other person does remember something. The pearls that were his eyes. I don't know if you remember any reference before in the poem to eyes. If you don't, you should, because there was a reference to eyes, and you told me something last class, and you said, but if the eyes are white and they are like pearls, you can't see, or you think about dead people, or you. This is a recurrent topic. The eyes that are like pearls or the eyes that can't see. And this question of you can't see, you can't remember, you're alive, you're dead, are you alive or not? This is also a recurring topic. If we go back to the burial of the dead, we may find a part that has a similar meaning to this with other words. Yes, is there nothing in your head? This idea of there is nothing, 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 the repetition. Well, we are not going to continue with the other part. This is a fragment I chose, but just to finish, am I finishing? No, we're not going to finish. But just to show you something else about the game of chess, let me see if I can find it. Be patient, please.
When Lil's husband got demobbed, I said I didn't.
We are not going to read
Hurry
that.
up, please. They had a hot gammon. Good night, sweet ladies. Good night. Good night. The fire sermon. The rivers. Good night, sweet ladies.
Well, we move now towards the fire sermon. Yes? We'll start with this next class. I don't want to bore you. But the fire sermon, if you think of a fire sermon, let me.
Good night. Good night.
This is how the game of chess finishes, the fire sermon. What's a sermon? First of all, if we want to contextualize this part, we say, well, a sermon is like someone can give a sermon can be a teaching. Could it be, well, we know it's a piece of discourse about something, generally related to religion. But this is not any kind of sermon, but the fire sermon. So here, at this point, the reader, if the reader knows something about Eliot's life and we do know, we can make relationships. Why? Because we know that Eliot studied a lot about philosophy and Indian philosophy especially, that he knew a lot of languages and that he knew about religion too. Well, and here's the moment that Eliot shows how much he knows about it. The fire sermon, apparently, is a sermon preached by Buddha. Yes, Eliot knew a lot about Buddhism, of course, because he knew a lot about Indian culture, philosophy, religion, even the language. So the legend says that Buddha preached this sermon, the fire sermon, you can Google it also, to teach humankind, to teach all people, all men, how some passions are completely harmful, that to be so passionate is not good for people. And especially, we are talking about passions that condemn men, that are against your will, or that can ruin your life, or that can be obstacles towards happiness, for example. Buddha speaks about being against, for example, anger, envy, and other passions that are seen as bad passions, let's call it. For example, lust, lust, lujuria, or that you are all the time so angry that you can become violent. These are also passionate people. You know that passion is not only related to positive ideas, that you say, he's so passionate about his job. That has a positive connotation. But if you speak of the other feelings that are very strong, they are also passions. Yes, as I told you, if you talk about envy, anger, lust. So Buddha preached against these passions, that we should be in a way more balanced and not to let these negative passions drive our life. That is the fire sermon. We don't know up to now if Eliot took that title just by chance, as in the game of chess that we didn't understand why, or if that part has a real meaning or is really related to the sermon. We'll see that next Thursday. So we'll start with the fire sermon. Remember, the first part was the burial of the dead. Part 2 was the game of chess. And now we start with this sermon that we don't know if it's going to be similar to Buddha's sermon or not. We are only going to see some extracts next Thursday. Okay, guys, remember to look for the change of Philomel to try to answer some of the questions I asked you in this part. And we'll see next Thursday.
Fire sermon.